If happiness had a price, would you pay it, even if it cost your soul? It was a scorching afternoon in Kaduna. The sun burned mercilessly over the red dust roads as the air carried the scent of roasted suya, exhaust fumes, and melting tar. In the well-guarded estate of Unguan Sarki, a man named Alhaji Mansur reclined in his imported Italian sofa, beneath the golden chandelier of his marbled sitting room. A chilled glass of zobo in hand, he sat alone despite the laughter of staff echoing from the kitchen. From the outside, he had everything: 3 houses, 5 expensive cars, 3 wives, international business partners, and 2 honorary chieftaincy titles. But inside, he was hollow, a man whose laughter never reached his eyes. He often stared out the window into nothingness, wondering why peace still eluded him. On this particular day, boredom led him to his phone. As he scrolled through news, memes, and photos of his recent political fundraiser, an ad suddenly hijacked his screen. Black background, white flashing letters, "By True Happiness." He frowned. Was it a scam? Then a chilling line blinked beneath it. Only the truly empty will understand. His hand froze. He swallowed hard. That night, the call to prayer echoed through the city like a warning. Alhaji stood on his upstairs balcony, watching lightning crack across the horizon. There was no rain, just heat and tension in the air. Suddenly, a knock sounded at his front gate. Too sharp. Too calm. The guards opened it. In walked a man in flowing white baberiga and red cap. He had no dust on his clothes despite the stormy wind. His eyes were strange, pale silver like old mirrors. The guards tried to stop him, but froze mid-step, unable to speak. The man passed through them like smoke and entered the living room uninvited. Alhaji rose in alarm. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the one who answers the cry you didn't speak," the man replied in Hausa, each word smooth and sharp. "Call me Malam Rafi. Do you want happiness?" "I sell it." Alhaji narrowed his eyes. "If you're mad, I'll have you thrown out." Malam Rafi gave a knowing smile. "You've tried cars, women, travel, alcohol, even prayer. Still, you are empty. I offer what no market can sell, but it comes at a cost no money can cover." They sat across from each other in the dining room. The air conditioner suddenly died, though the generator was running. The chandelier dimmed. Alhaji leaned forward. "What's the catch?" he asked. "You sign this," Malam Rafi said, producing a scroll made of something smoky and writhing. "You get 7 days, 7 perfect days of true happiness. The kind that fills the soul. In the end, your soul belongs to me, for 7 years. Alhaji scoffed. "My soul? What is this, Nollywood?" "You don't have to believe me. Sign, and you'll feel what you've never felt before. Peace, laughter, sleep without nightmares. A wife who adores you. Children who truly admire you. Friends who do not envy you. All yours for 7 days. After that, you choose. Return to emptiness or stay in bliss and forget yourself forever." Thunder rumbled. Alhaji hesitated. Could it be real? A scam couldn't explain this man's power. He had nothing to lose. "What do I sign with?" Malam Rafi placed a pen on the table, carved from bone and glistening with fresh ink that shimmered like oil. "Sign with intent," the man said. "Mean your wish, or the happiness will turn against you." Alhaji, hands trembling, signed his name. A cold wind swept the room. Malam Rafi stood. "Your 7 days begin now." Suddenly, Alhaji's phone rang. The number flashing was from Aso Rock. That night, Alhaji found himself sitting at a table draped in white and gold, facing the President of the Federal Republic himself. The invitation was real. A long, marble dining hall shimmered with candlelight and soft music. Ministers, billionaires, and foreign diplomats clapped him on the back like an old friend. The president raised his glass. To Alhaji Mansur, a man Kaduna should be proud of. Applause roared. Alhaji's heart beat fast. For the first time, he didn't feel like a fraud. Everything felt right. He laughed. Real laughter. The kind that melted years of bitterness from his chest. He ate tuo and mayan taoshi that tasted like it was cooked by his late grandmother. Even the wine felt like sunlight in his veins. Women looked at him with admiration, not calculation. As the hall emptied, and he stood to leave, a mirror caught his reflection. But the man in the reflection didn't look back. In the days that followed, Alhaji's world transformed. A Swiss bank wired $4.2 million into one of his dormant accounts, part of an oil deal he had long forgotten. His children returned from the UK and hugged him with tears. His third wife, Fatima, surprised him with a birthday party, something she hadn't done in 5 years. He began to dream again, of gardens, of his father's laughter, of a village he hadn't visited since childhood. His body felt younger. He walked with a bounce. He laughed without effort. Even his enemies praised him. Old rivals called to make peace. The emir invited him for prayer and offered him a plot of land beside the palace. But on the 4th morning, as he awoke stretching happily, he found something strange on his bed, a single black feather, and wet footprints leading to his bathroom, though no one had entered. Alhaji stared at the black feather for a long time, turning it in his fingers. It was warm, unnaturally warm, and shimmered slightly, like coal in a firelight. He tucked it away into his drawer, brushing it off as a dream or coincidence. Later that afternoon, he visited a newly opened orphanage he had helped fund. Cameras flashed as children danced around him, hugging his legs and singing. Reporters praised his generosity. Yet in every photo taken that day, he noticed something strange. Malam Rafi stood in the background, smiling directly at the lens. No one else noticed him. Not a single person. The mirror in Alhaji's hallway had always been antique, framed in bronze and etched with Arabic blessings. But tonight, as he passed it heading upstairs, the reflection shimmered. His own image did not follow. It stared directly at him, expressionless, then slowly raised a hand. "You have borrowed joy," the reflection whispered. "Now the debt calls." Alhaji screamed and threw a stool at the mirror. It shattered into pieces, only for the shards to reform themselves as if time rewound. The mirror was whole again. But now it no longer reflected him at all. To drown the dread, Alhaji hosted a lavish night party at his private estate by River Kaduna. Lights blazed. Champagne flowed. A-list guests flew in from Lagos and Dubai. Fireworks painted the sky. But halfway through the party, as music pulsed and dancers twirled, everything stopped. Literally. Guests froze mid-laughter. Drinks hovered mid-air. Even the flames of torches paused in place. Alhaji looked around in horror. And there he was, Malam Rafi, standing in the middle of the frozen crowd, holding an hourglass. Only 2 grains of sand remained in the top chamber. "Day 6, Rafi said calmly. "The final joy approaches." Alhaji awoke to silence. No birds. No drivers. No house staff. The mansion was cold. Every clock had stopped at 4:44 a.m. A thick fog choked the windows. He ran outside. The world was colorless, washed out like an old photo. Even the sun seemed dim. He ran to his neighbor's house, banging the gate. No answer. Every home on his street stood still, empty, lifeless. Kaduna had become a grave. A voice echoed from nowhere. "You wanted the world to yourself, Mansur. Now you have it." Desperate, Alhaji returned to his prayer mat. He fell to his knees, sobbing. "I want my life back. Take everything. Just give me back the world." Malam Rafi appeared behind him. "Too late for prayer," he whispered. "But not too late for a trade." Alhaji turned, eyes red. "What do you want?" "Someone else's soul in exchange for yours. Someone close. Choose before sunrise." And with that, the final grain of sand fell, and the call to prayer began in reverse. Alhaji Mansur ran down the streets of Kaduna, but they stretched unnaturally, longer than they should. His feet ached, and the city blurred into something foreign. The sky above turned a deep rust color, and buildings began to sink into the ground like melting wax. He stumbled into a massive open plain that stretched to the horizon. Faces began rising from the dust, familiar faces. His uncle who died poor. His first housemaid, whom he had accused falsely of theft. His childhood friend, whom he had betrayed over money. They all stared at him with hollow eyes. "You forgot us," they whispered in unison. "You fed your joy with our silence." He spun around in panic, and behind him, standing above the crowd like a ghostly statue, was his own face carved in black stone, with its mouth sewn shut. Still fleeing, Alhaji ran until his feet met water. He stood at the banks of River Kaduna, but the river wasn't flowing. It had frozen mid-motion, suspended like a glass sculpture. Beneath the surface he saw faces, dozens, hundreds, mouths moving beneath the ice. He knelt to look closer. One of the faces was his first son, Usman. Another, his late mother. Their eyes opened inside the ice, staring directly at him. Their mouths moved in silent warnings. Suddenly, the ice cracked beneath his knees. He jumped back, but now the river began to boil. Panting, delirious, Alhaji staggered toward a familiar landmark, the old central mosque. It stood untouched by the collapsing world around him, pristine and radiant. At its gate sat a small girl, barefoot, with a bowl of dates in her lap. She looked up at him, her eyes ancient and soft. "Do you know me?" she asked. He hesitated. "No." She handed him a date. "Then remember." The moment he bit into it, he was hit by a surge of memories. Her face as a dying beggar outside his gate, years ago, when he stepped over her body on his way to a party. Her eyes blinked slowly now. "You owe a debt greater than gold." He looked down, and her body was turning to ash. Night fell in an instant. Alhaji was dragged through a gate made of fire and deposited in a round courtroom where the ceiling showed constellations that moved unnaturally. Judges sat around him, figures draped in black robes, faces veiled. Malam Rafi stood as prosecutor. "The charge is simple, trading another's suffering for personal bliss." One by one, witnesses came forth, each recounting how Alhaji's actions brought misery, even as his smile grew wider. He screamed, "I didn't know. I didn't mean it." The central judge finally spoke. "A final test remains. Your soul may yet return, but only if someone willingly takes your place." The gavel fell. Let the choosing begin. Alhaji awoke in his bed. The sheets were clean. The room filled with sunlight. Was it a dream? Had he hallucinated everything? He walked downstairs. Fatima was cooking. His son played the piano. His phone buzzed with business messages. He wept with joy. He dropped to his knees. Maybe it was a second chance. Maybe Malam Rafi had changed his mind. Then the doorbell rang. He opened it, and there stood Fatima. Another Fatima, in tears, blood on her blouse. The one in the kitchen turned, and her eyes were silver. Alhaji stumbled backward. The Fatima in the kitchen now stared at him with an unblinking expression, her silver eyes glowing faintly. Her smile was too wide, too perfect. The real Fatima, disheveled, weeping, stood outside, trembling. "Don't trust her," the real one whispered. "She's not me." The one in the kitchen began to hum the lullaby their son used to sleep to. Her face contorted slowly into something neither human nor spirit, like a mask stretched too tightly over a stranger's face. Alhaji grabbed the Quran from the hallway and raised it, shouting prayers. The fake Fatima let out a hiss that sounded like fire on metal. She vanished in a plume of black smoke, leaving the room ice cold. But etched into the living room wall, scorched and shaking, were the words, "You signed in truth. You'll leave in pieces." Later that evening, Alhaji heard voices outside his window. He peered through the blinds. A group of silent people stood at his gate, people he recognized. A boy he had once slapped for touching his car, an old friend he swindled in a land deal, his late driver who died in an accident he caused but covered up. Each held a candle. Their shadows stretched longer than their bodies. He rushed out to confront them, but the moment he opened the gate they vanished, leaving behind only their flickering candles. As he stepped into the darkness to pick one up, his palm burned, and a mark appeared, an ancient Hausa symbol he didn't recognize, glowing faintly on his skin. Suddenly, the candles reignited on their own, forming a perfect circle around him. Terrified, Alhaji rushed to the house of Malam Bashir, a respected imam in Kawo who had once performed an exorcism in a market that made headlines. The old man listened in silence as Alhaji recounted everything. When Alhaji finished, shaking and breathless, the imam closed his eyes. "You signed something older than your ancestors," he said gravely. "This Rafi is no man. He is one of the old ones, the ones who feed on regret. Can you help me?" Alhaji begged. "I can try, but you must return everything you gained through that deal. Your happiness, your power, your name. You must walk into your past barefoot and beg those you wronged for their tears, not their forgiveness." Alhaji's voice broke. "What if I don't?" The imam looked up sharply. "Then on the 7th night, you will no longer be yourself." Alhaji obeyed. The next morning, barefoot and dressed in plain kaftan, he walked to the neighborhood of Unguendosa, where he once evicted 20 families to build his plaza. The buildings still stood, but the people were long gone. He sat by the mosque wall and wept. A small boy approached him and asked, "Why are you crying?" "I stole this land from your father," Alhaji said. "I thought it would make me happy." The boy nodded. "He said to forgive you if you ever cried with your head down." As Alhaji lowered his head, he felt something break inside him. His limbs shook. A blinding flash clouded his sight. And when he opened his eyes, he was no longer in Unguendosa. He was back in the courtroom of shadows. The judges from before had returned. This time their faces were visible. Each one was Alhaji himself, but at different ages. As a child, a teen, a young father, an angry businessman. They looked down at him, neither judging nor mocking. Malam Rafi emerged from the shadows, scroll in hand. "Final hour," he said. "Choose your soul or theirs." A portal opened. Inside it, Alhaji saw his wife, his children, and the staff who remained loyal. All of them, frozen in a moment of fear. "One must walk in your shoes for the next 7 years," Rafi whispered. "Or you dissolve into bliss, forgetting all you ever were." Alhaji fell to his knees, screaming, "There must be another way." And then, a familiar voice echoed through the court. "There is, if you're ready to pay a real price." The voice that interrupted the courtroom was one Alhaji hadn't heard in 20 years. It was his late father's, deep and commanding. "You always believed success was your shield. Now you must learn it can be your prison." The room shifted. Shadows peeled away to reveal a dusty compound from decades ago, his childhood home. There stood his father, tall and solemn, wearing a gray kaftan and holding a whip. "You were warned," the image said. "You chose gold over grace. But there is one thing left, a sacrifice of memory. Give up everything you know about your triumphs, your titles, and yourself. Forget who you are." Alhaji cried, "But if I forget, I won't be me." His father's eyes softened. "Then maybe you'll finally be free." A searing pain burned behind Alhaji's eyes. Images, names, achievements, his first car, the applause of senators, the newspaper headlines, rushed from his mind like smoke escaping a cracked jar. One by one, he forgot who praised him, who envied him, who feared him. Malam Rafi watched with curiosity. "So, you are willing to unmake yourself." Alhaji collapsed, barely remembering his name. His igbada turned to ash. His skin shimmered briefly with strange glyphs, glowing and then vanishing. But then, his wife's voice called from the void, "Mansur, don't go." He turned, but he no longer recognized her face. Malam Rafi gave him one final offer. "Return to the world, not as Alhaji Mansur, but as a man unknown. Poor, forgotten, but at peace. And if I say no, he asked, barely forming the words, you'll remain here. No pain, no joy. Just endless forgetting. A small door appeared behind him, glowing faintly. Through it, he saw a dusty road, a small kiosk, and a kind-looking woman offering him a cup of water. Rafi smiled. Your final test, choose nothing, or lose everything. As Alhaji stepped forward, the floor beneath him cracked open. Alhaji woke up gasping for air, lying on a mat inside a tiny mud brick house. Outside, goats bleated, and children played barefoot in red sand. He wore simple clothes. His palms were calloused. He had no idea who he was, only that his name, perhaps, was Musa. A kind old woman entered. You had the fever, she said. But God has spared you. He nodded slowly. What do I do here? She smiled. You help. You heal. You serve. He walked outside, and for the first time in his life felt nothing pulling him backward, only forward. But as he passed a broken mirror beside the hut, for the briefest second, his old face stared back at him. Years passed. Musa became a humble teacher in the village. He taught children how to read the Quran, how to write their names, and how to believe in something beyond wealth. He grew older, but gentler. Occasionally, when storms rolled across the savannah, he would feel a chill, like a memory trying to return. But it always faded. One evening, under a crescent moon, a stranger in white baberiga passed through the village. He watched Musa from afar, then left a note by the well. You chose rightly. But know this, happiness cannot be bought. It must be earned piece by piece in the service of others. Musa never saw the note. But that night he slept with a smile, a real one. Years passed peacefully. Musa taught children beneath a neem tree, using chalk and rough slates. The children adored him, and even adults sought his quiet wisdom. Though he never remembered his past, his instincts often led him to advise with strange precision. One rainy afternoon, while dismissing his students, a young girl approached him with a question. Malam Musa, how do you know so much about regret? He blinked. Something shifted deep within, a flicker of old emotion. That night, alone in his hut, he found a strange feather on his pillow, black, warm, and familiar. As thunder cracked outside, a voice echoed in his dreams. You may forget the name, but not the debt. The village prepared for the annual festival honoring ancestral spirits. Musa, now regarded as the community elder, was asked to lead the procession. He accepted, feeling honored. That evening, dressed in white, he carried a lantern at the front of the crowd. The path was lined with fire and drumming. But as they approached the shrine, the shadows around him thickened. From the corner of his eye, he saw them, those marked souls from his past. The driver, the beggar girl, the childhood friend. Their faces were serene, but their eyes followed him. He stopped, heart pounding. The village danced behind him, unaware. Then a familiar figure stepped from the fire, Malam Rafi. Rafi stood beneath the festival archway, unchanged. You ran well, Musa, he said. But debts are timeless. I paid with everything, Musa replied. Even my name. Rafi nodded. And still there is interest. He opened his palm. In it glowed a tiny hourglass, its grains of sand black and slow. You are owed one final choice, Rafi said. Speak your name aloud, and return to all you once had. Or stay here, and let your legacy be forgotten when you die. Musa gripped the lantern tightly. Why give me this? Because even I am curious, Rafi said, about which pain you prefer. At dawn, Musa stood at the edge of the same river where he had once boiled in guilt. This time the waters flowed gently. Villagers passed by, greeting him warmly. He stood alone, holding the hourglass. His lips trembled. Alhaji Mansur, he whispered. A wind howled across the river. The skies darkened. His back arched in pain, but then the wind passed. Nothing changed. He dropped the hourglass into the river. It hissed, then vanished. I choose to be forgotten, if that means I can be free. From the forest behind him, Rafi's voice floated faintly. Then your soul is yours at last. Musa lived many more years. He built a new school, married a widow, and helped her raise 3 boys. He was never rich. He was never famous. But when he died, his funeral overflowed. Children wept. Women sang. Men testified to his humility. Not a soul mentioned the name Mansur, because no one knew it. But in the northern wind that night, some say they heard laughter, not mocking but free. A feather floated in the sky, glowing briefly, then vanished. Musa was buried beneath a neem tree outside the village. No marble, no plaque. Just a small wooden sign etched with a child's handwriting. To Malam Musa, who made us believe we mattered. The villagers often brought flowers. Children planted seeds around his grave. Rain softened the soil, and within weeks wild hibiscus bloomed. But one night, under a crescent moon, an old man in white knelt silently beside the grave. Malam Rafi placed a single black feather into the earth and whispered, "The price is paid, but the lesson remains." As he turned to leave, the tree above began to hum. Years later, a young boy named Idris, a curious soul with a limp but a fierce heart, found a strange black feather near Musa's grave. The moment he touched it, he felt a chill. That night, he dreamed of a mansion he'd never seen, of foreign cars, and of a golden chandelier swinging wildly. He told his mother the next morning. She laughed nervously and said, "That's just a story." But the feather wouldn't burn when thrown in fire. Idris kept it hidden under his mattress. But dreams of a man named Alhaji soon turned into whispers from the walls. In his dream, Idris was offered a scroll by a tall man in red. "You can be everything you ever wanted," the man said. "No one will laugh at your limp again." Idris looked at the scroll. The script shimmered in gold. Behind the man stood shadows clapping slowly, their eyes gleaming with hunger. He asked, "Who are you?" "I am possibility," the man said. "I am the market of dreams." Idris reached for the scroll, but something in him hesitated. "Who is Alhaji?" he asked. The man's smile cracked. He was the one who almost escaped. Idris confided in the village imam, now an old, stooped man who remembered Musa well. He listened to Idris's dreams, then led him to the grave. That man buried here once thought happiness could be bought. But he paid with everything he had. Idris held out the feather. "Why won't it burn?" The imam smiled faintly. "Because some temptations don't die. They wait." That night, Idris had one final dream. A man sat under a neem tree, smiling. "You already have what I gave everything to find," the man said. Idris woke up and found the feather had turned to ash. The village thrived. Musa's school became a hub for orphans, for wanderers, for broken hearts seeking a new beginning. No one remembered Alhaji Mansur, but the lessons he paid for shaped a generation. Idris grew into a teacher. And when one of his students asked, "Sir, do you believe in magic?" he replied, "I believe in choices, and that sometimes they cost more than we can see." That evening, as he swept the classroom, he found a scroll fragment beneath a desk, blank, silent, but still warm to the touch. He smiled, folded it gently, and burned it without fear. One day, a black SUV rolled into the village. Out stepped Senator Abdul Wahid, an aging politician with rings on every finger and arrogance in every step. He claimed to be funding a modernization initiative. He offered to buy Musa's old school grounds, promising a concrete building with air conditioning, tablets, and sponsorships. The villagers listened, tempted. But Idris stood firm. This school was not built with concrete. It was built with sacrifice. "We don't sell it." That night, Senator Abdul Wahid received a call. A voice, calm and sharp, said, "You cannot buy what was already paid for in full." His hand trembled. "Who is this?" But the line was filled with the sound of feathers fluttering. A month later, Idris discovered a hidden box behind the old school chalkboard. Inside it was a journal, bound in cracked leather, the first page signed, Mansur. Each page chronicled his descent, his hunger, his deal, and the undoing of his name. The writing became more broken, more human, more desperate. At the back was a final entry. I do not ask to be remembered, only that someone chooses better. Idris copied the entire journal into a new book. But every time he tried to remove Mansur's name from the top, the ink bled back in. He left it on the shelf, titled simply, "The Man Who Tried to Buy Happiness." Years passed. Idris became a father. The school expanded, not with concrete, but with purpose. Then one day, a new teacher arrived, tall, polite, dressed in white babariga. He introduced himself as Mr. Rafi. Idris's blood turned cold. For days, Rafi taught literature. His stories were rich, dark, and strangely hypnotic. Children loved him. But Idris noticed something. The man never blinked, never sweated, never stumbled. One night, Idris followed him, and found him speaking to the neem tree, whispering in a language older than Hausa. Idris confronted Mr. Rafi beneath the tree. "You fed on him, and now you've returned." Rafi smiled calmly. "I only offer. It is humans who sign." "Leave this place," Idris growled. "We've learned from him." Rafi's expression turned solemn. "So few do." He paused, then extended a familiar scroll. "Then teach the next generation this. The devil does not knock. He waits for you to open the door." Idris took the scroll, but before he could speak, Rafi faded like smoke into moonlight. He looked down. The scroll had vanished, but the ground beneath the neem tree had begun to glow. Idris never spoke of Rafi again, but he rewrote the school's curriculum. Every child who graduated read from The Man Who Tried to Buy Happiness. They studied it not as fiction, but as memory. The tree under which Musa was buried grew so large it shaded half the schoolyard. People began to say it whispered in the wind. One day a boy asked Idris, "Is happiness free?" Idris smiled gently. "No, but the path to it doesn't cost your soul." And deep beneath the earth, where no one could see, a black feather turned to dust and never returned again. A few seasons later, a new child named Bako arrived at the school. He was silent, pale, and unusually observant. He never smiled. He never cried. But he always listened. Teachers said he was gifted, too gifted. He solved arithmetic faster than anyone, could read Arabic and English fluently, and once corrected a verse from the Quran with chilling precision. One day, during a creative writing exercise, Bako turned in a story titled, "The Price of Souls." The main character was named Mansur. The antagonist, a man in white who never blinked,